Sonic the Hedgehog as a franchise is no stranger to having a wide cast of characters. It feels like with every new game, they introduce a character or two that ends up becoming a mainstay in all future installments and a reoccurring competitor in the Olympics. Some of these characters are beloved by the community, like Blaze, Silver, the Chaotix, etc., while some are not as well received, like the Deadly Six. Please, Sega, stop trying to make them a thing. One piece of Sonic media that introduces more characters in the games nowadays is the IDW comics, which is the point of origin of a lot of newer Sonic characters that are now fan favorites. The two standouts that any hardcore fan will jump to are Tangle and Whisper, but there's also others like Lanolin, Bell, Mimic, Dr. Starline, all characters with their own unique flavors and add something to the wider Sonic world, even more so now. With Ian Flynn's consistent involvement in a lot of the story writing for both the games and the comics, and the fact that Tangle was name-dropped in Frontiers, and now that Tangle and Whisper are in Crossworlds, these characters aren't just extra non-canon inclusions of a spin-off comic anymore. They're integral, important characters in this universe. But there's one specific character that I want to discuss today, a character that brings not only a new flavor to the story like the other characters, but offers up something to the character of Sonic in a way never done before at this level. A proper foil to Sonic the Hedgehog, an antithesis in every sense of the word, and a character that challenges Sonic on his worldview more than any other character before or since. Surge the Tenrec. Introduced in the 36th issue of the IDW run in late 2021, Surge the Tenrec rocked the foundation of the Sonic mythos the moment she set zappy foot onto the page. From her memorable punkish design to her electrifying personality, Ian Flynn was able to take the best parts about a certain other character from another Sonic run you may have heard of, take the handful of good traits from him, and turn it into something really special. Not only did Surge get my immediate stamp of approval just because of her electric powers, but the way she offered a genuine antithesis to Sonic's morals is something not even characters like Shadow or Metal Sonic were able to do. At least not to this extent. The thing she offers this story in the wider Sonic world, both during and after her villain phase, is incredible, and in my opinion makes her one of the most narratively fascinating characters in Sonic's entire cast. And I'm gonna do what I do best and ramble about it incoherently for at least 10 minutes. This is Surge the Tenrec, Sonic's true antithesis. Firstly, what does it mean for a character to be an antithesis? An antithesis character is a character meant to serve the purpose of directly contrasting another character's worldview or to highlight a specific trait or ideal of said character, usually a protagonist. The most common example of a character like this is a villain that has a set of ideals that directly counters what the hero believes in every way possible. A character like this is an easy way to highlight why a villain is evil or why a hero is good, but sometimes more skilled writers can use it to show up a sense of growth for either character. Perhaps the villain has a similar outlook on life as the hero, but a more matured, nihilistic perspective compared to the hero's possibly more naive one. The villain can offer a question to the hero that they don't have an answer to, as a way to try and get them to turn away from their more idealistic worldview. But instead, through hardship and growth, they find the answer to that impossible question, defeating them not only physically, but spiritually as well. Foil characters like this are always really fun for me to watch, because when handled well, they can put the protagonist in very difficult situations, causing them to maybe have to reflect on some aspects of their mindset, and you can definitely see that with Surge and her relationship with Sonic. Before we can talk about Surge herself, we need to provide some extra context about the IDW story up until this point, specifically Sonic himself and the actions he's taken. Anyone who's seen my previous Sonic video about the Blue Blur himself is probably familiar with what's about to follow, but if not, I recommend checking that video out first because it goes deeper into IDW Sonic's mindset and my opinions on it. Sonic in the IDW comics, in my opinion, seems to be trying to stick more towards how he acted during what Sonic fans call the Dark Ages, aka the line of Sonic games that came out during the 2000s. But even more than that, they're trying to take that worldview that was so integral to his character back then and mature it a little, while also providing some genuine pushback against some of his outlooks on things, specifically from other characters. The first major piece of conflict that takes place in this comic is Sonic and a handful of characters deciding the fate of the amnesiac Dr. Eggman. Shadow's about ready to kill the man, but Sonic argues letting him be. Say whatever you want about Sonic's portrayal in these comics, but one thing that's remained consistent is Sonic's value of freedom. He is a free spirit, does whatever he wants whenever he wants. To him, that's the most important thing in the world, being able to explore the world at his own pace, and he desires everyone else to have those same opportunities, which is why he and Eggman, an egotistical control freak, are constantly butting heads. But this seems like a situation where everyone wins. Eggman's no longer causing trouble, and they don't have to put him in a prison or kill him, which is something that Sonic consistently has always been pretty hesitant on doing. Now, while this does work for this specific scenario, this does highlight something about Sonic's character that is reflected in characters like Surge, his ability to let his villains take accountability for their crimes. It's the classic Batman conundrum. He beats his villains effortlessly, talks some trash, and lets them go and plan their next scheme instead of taking efforts to put them away permanently. And if you think I'm overthinking this and trying to make up excuses as to why Sonic never actually kills, I'm not. One of the official artists for these comics made a little mini-comic a few years back, showcasing Lanolin and her thoughts about Sonic, including how easily he could end all of Eggman's plans permanently, but won't, and leaves her and the Resistance to pick up the pieces. This also is reflected in a lot of Lanolin's official dialogue, especially in the later story arcs, and even the Chaotix have called him out on it recently after the whole Phantom Rider conundrum. This idea of Sonic's value of freedom teetering on the line of negligence is definitely something that's on the minds of the teams behind this story. And the best part is, we don't even have to look at non-canon material made by official artists. We can see it in the subject of today's video herself. Surge is everything I've been talking about with Sonic's fatal flaw, wrapped up into one sparkly little package. In the Imposter Syndrome miniseries leading up to Sonic's big fight with Surge, we see her and Kit's backstory, or rather lack thereof. Starline took them in when they were children, injected them with machines to grant them superhuman abilities, and brainwashed them until there was nothing left but a desire to serve Starline and destroy Sonic and Tails. But once they find out what he actually did to them, they decide to go rogue and do their own thing. In Surge's own words, they were robbed of their past, so everyone else loses their future. Classic Scorched Earth. Immediately, a contrast is set. Sonic, a living embodiment of free will and living life the way he wants, is put up against someone that had those opportunities taken away from them. Her chances of being her own person were robbed, and was turned into a freak of nature, a woman with no memories besides the ones planted in her head, and no thoughts other than what Starline wanted her to think. Her entire life, as she knew it, was all part of a calculated scheme by an egotistical maniac, and she blames Sonic for it. In their first interaction, Surge makes it very clear that she blames Sonic for her creation, bringing the fatal flaw of the Hedgehog to the spotlight more than it ever had been in the history of the series. Sonic's willingness to continue to let the villains go, whether out of hope they change or just because he finds it fun, only leads to a never-ending cycle of destruction. If he had either killed Eggman or done a better job of keeping him locked away, Starline wouldn't have created Surge, and their entire lives wouldn't have been a terrible mess of trauma and missing memories. But that's just not in Sonic's character, for better or worse. Taking someone's life is the ultimate form of cutting off someone's freedom, and that's just something he won't do, regardless if some consider it selfish or idealistic. And Surge, someone who had never been able to make her own decisions or be her own person for as long as she'd known, cannot understand it, and it infuriates her. Because as long as Sonic's alive, as long as the doctors are alive, there is no freedom for her, for Kit, or any of them. She denies Sonic at every avenue when he offers a chance to bury the hatchet. She's too set in her ways. The code left in her brain by Starline has too much of a grip on her psyche that she can't accept any other reality where she isn't in Sonic's shadow. The world discarded her. No one looked for her after she vanished. So why should she bother with exploring the world's wonders? The theme of Surge and Kit being used by others continues even after their big villain arc. In the very next storyline, they're recruited by Clutch as part of his next big scheme. And when they try to leave after being called heroes during the race, Clutch shuts them down and reminds them that they're under his thumb. Just like Starline, he's trying to control them, giving them false identities so that they can fulfill his plan. But also just like with Starline, the two go rogue and take part in ruining his plans. So now that all that's been said and done, where does that leave these two characters now? Well, Surge and Kit are in a very interesting position currently in the comics. They no longer work for Clutch and are now on their own again. They still have a vendetta against Sonic, and have made it very clear that their beef is not done. Even though they're no longer under Starline's influence, the scars he left in the two of them are still there, and they're still fresh. As long as Sonic's alive, Surge will never be able to fully let go of the rage and bitterness that's been building in her heart. But she may have found a way to balance it out. As I mentioned before, during the series of racing competitions, Surge and Kit are seen as heroes by the crowds of spectators because they chased off the Phantom Rider. And suddenly, the once rageful, vengeance-seeking girl is replaced with something new. She likes the attention, she likes the glory, being seen as a hero and no longer rejected by a world that once discarded her. And now, she's chasing that high instead of chasing down Sonic. Now, while it may be for more of the glory aspect rather than actually helping people in need, it is a start to reforming. These two characters were hurt in ways indescribable, and at least Surge seems to be on the path to reforming, while Kit still seems to be stuck in his code, only existing to help Surge and prop her up. So instead, he's been creating artificial situations of peril so that Surge can be the hero more. I can only imagine where that's going to go. Surge is a fascinating character to me because of all the different things that she provides for the Sonic universe. Not only is she a direct counter to Sonic's moral view, and that alone can lead to some really interesting developments, but she can also be an example as to why at the very core of it, Sonic was right. Surge wouldn't have had the opportunities to form friendships and a desire to help people if Sonic had killed her right there in Eggman City. While Surge was right about Sonic's intelligence with Eggman and Starline, one thing that Sonic did get right is that giving people a way to recover and change their mind about their own ways is the right thing to do, if they're willing to take that leap. And while she hasn't taken that leap yet, I'm sure we'll see her get closer and closer to that as she appears more throughout these comics. What I like about Surge, and frankly all of the other original characters from this comic series, is that they aren't mandated by any Sega rule lists. Legacy characters like Shadow, Silver, Amy, and even Sonic are locked in these archetypes that Sonic Team is hellbent on keeping. So many characters don't get the opportunity to grow, at least in any meaningful way. But with characters like Surge, there's no precedent. No status quo for them to revert to, so the writers can do whatever they want with them and take their stories wherever they'd like. Truthfully, it's one of the reasons I keep coming back to these comics. While it may feel childish at times, there's very mature, very powerful character work woven into these pages, and every time a new character is introduced, I'm always interested to see what they add to the future of this series. These characters are becoming more and more involved in Sonic's legacy than ever before, and with Surge specifically, I think at the rate she's going, she has the grounds to be the most mature, emotional, and most triumphant villain to hero arc I've seen from this series, and I cannot wait to see that unfold. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.